and good afternoon, and welcome to Williams Island TV. We're going to continue. I know you've already or may not have seen yet the interviews we did yesterday. We had Senator Geller, and we also had with us yesterday Dr. Jacobs, who is also running for commission. Today, we're going to be meeting with Gustavo Blachman, who's running for commission, and his opponent happens to be Dr. Jacobs. And then we will be meeting with Martin Karp, who's running against Joe Geller for the school board. But today, I want to introduce you to my good friend, Gustavo.
Thank you.
Gustavo and I go back quite a while together. He's been in the community a long time. We used to live as neighbors in the Point. And he's run before for the commission, and this time he's running for the commission, and hopefully everything will be well. For those that don't know you, because I know you do know so many people, tell us a little about what got you to want to be in politics.
Well, I moved to Aventura in 1995, and my first home was at Mystic Point Tower 600. A few years into my ownership in the building, I decided to become a board member. I ran for the board. And ever since that day, I've been a board member in multiple different associations because I believe in getting involved. I am not one of the guys that will complain about things without trying to work on the solutions. So I've been involved in the board of Atlantic One at the Point as a board member and president for multiple years. I've been a board member in Atlantic Two at the Point. I've been a board member for many years in Village by the Bay and president for many years. And today I am a board member on the HOA of Aventura Lakes, where I reside. So I believe in getting involved. I believe it's a way of giving back to our community. We have a great place. Aventura is a magnificent city. There's always little things that can be adjusted here and there. And I believe that I possess the knowledge that will help the city get to a better place. As you know, you hired me once as your broker. So basically, we have a long-standing relationship, not only as friends, but I have represented you.
Yes.
And being in real estate allows you to understand a lot of what's going on with values, with the perfect storm that is coming our ways, with all these increases in maintenance, in insurances, in special assessments, in recertification. I think the understanding of these topics provides me a unique knowledge to be able to, once elected, be able to discuss options and solutions, or what can we do to alleviate our communities at a state level. Because when you're just an individual, a homeowner, your voice is limited to who you know. When you're an elected official, you can reach higher, and you can speak on behalf of your residents. So that's one of my goals. I believe that I can bring value to our community, and I think that this is the perfect time to do so.
Let me ask you, because Aventura obviously is known for a lot of things. It's an amazing city, because I can speak from example. I was commissioned for 8 years. But more importantly than me, that's the least of it, we have 2 amazing schools. And somebody can move into Aventura and from kindergarten all the way up to the end of high school, get an amazing education if they get it. We are looking, I understand, into a 3rd school that would expand some of the schools and take some of the pressure off. But tell me a little about how you think you could help the educational side, because that's going to be a major component of the commission's responsibility, because as you know, the commission is the board of directors of these schools.
Well, basically, the commission is doing the right thing, trying to find the location of a new school so that we can move the pieces we need to move to have more students into the school. The first thing is to increase the capacity. The second is to review the curriculum. You know, as you know, the Aventura Commission is the board of the school. So you can bring your knowledge into that. As you know, I raised 4 amazing kids here. I have Mia, who's an artist and studies theater and journalism. I have Nico, who is a professional hockey player. He's into arts, into athletics, I'm sorry. And I have Thomas, who is an aerospace systems engineer. All of them, including Matti, my older son, at 37 years old, just yesterday, works in HR, and they all went to the Aventura Public School. So it's clear to me that there's more that we can do as parents. Not only that, I now have 3 grandkids. Right now, the 3 of them are in Aventura, and they will most likely end up in the school system in the city of Aventura if they get in again. So I have a vested interest in making sure that our school does not only well, does even better. And also the extracurricular activities to bring more activities to our children and to increase the sports and everything that we can provide them.
So looking at the commission, it's a fairly young commission. And I know when I was on it, I was like, Grandpa, you'll probably be the man of experience. You'll have the wisdom of age, let's say. And I say that in a complimentary way because it is a young commission. I mean, they're great people and I love all of them, but they're young. And some of them have not had some of the real estate experience. And I don't think people understand, one of the biggest complaints we have in our city is traffic, too much construction, new high rises. And yet people don't realize that we have absolutely nothing to do with approving whether or not a building gets built or not. We can only approve the aesthetical side of it. The actual zoning came from the county when Aventura became a city. So in your job, how do you respond to the public? How do you try to control as best as you can level of services on traffic, the impact it has on all these other services?
There's, recently the city have passed an increase on the density from 25 units per acre to 75 units per acre, and in some cases up to 90. There are some projects that have been approved with the new high density.
Now, wasn't that part of the transit zone?
It is part of the transit
Yes,
zone,
that's what
but the city has to approve, and it's part of what have happened before my time. It's either that or they leave local, which gives you even more density. So you're right. There is certain limitations as to what the city can do, and then again, there's certain demands from our homeowners and our residents that are looking into us to be aware of what their wants and needs are.
So we have a transit zone that now goes from 25 to 75 units per acre.
You have to be half a mile from the train tracks, and very limited properties are within.
I was going to say, do we have many left?
Yes, we do. We have some west of Biscayne on the medical district, in the hospital zone. We have, across the street on Biscayne, and we have, Lomas Plaza would be the perfect redevelopment area that people may look into the future, and they have the right to do so if it comes to play. And recently, I was in some commission meetings where they were trying to do something on Island Boulevard. I believe that it didn't pass, but people will try, and people will try again, and they will try again. And the thing is that you need to listen to what people want. And I believe that is what brings additional value to what I bring to the table, because I can hear, and I have been listening, and I've been contacted by many, many, many different homeowners from different places, different communities, that are concerned about, the recertifications, with the way the boards are doing things, with the new construction. Also, I own an investment property in Biscayne Lake Gardens. I don't know if you know, but there's a developer trying to acquire all the units. They're trying to redevelop that community. It will come. It will happen eventually, because, sometimes the cost of carrying a unit in an older building becomes, well, you should know by what's happening here in Med Villages. I read that the special assessments are coming all the way to $220,000 for Med Villages. It's very concerning. And I believe that you have to, give the attention to the homeowners that are struggling and find ways to alleviate their pain.
What are the ways? Because unfortunately, it's state mandated that you have to do these 40-year certifications.
Senator Pitzel has been exposing on the floor within the commission about the different programs that the county may have for years. Unfortunately, not everybody qualifies. I also spoke with some representative, the first representative from District 106. And we all try to find ways of coming with the right forward. But higher politics, my job is elected is to bring the attention to the issue and to make sure that they don't forget about what we got.
But let me ask you, and not to play devil's advocate, but because I've been there and I live it right now, being here. We have found that the average assessment on this island has been anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000, which is a lot of money a unit. And unfortunately, due to the mandates that the state has handed down, we don't have a choice about it. We have found that the local government at their level have no say in it. They have nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Aventura have nothing to do.
Nothing.
But again, I will say what I said before. Once that you're elected, you represent an area. You represent residents of the city. You don't represent the north side or the south side. You represent the whole city members. And when you see that there is people struggling, you can call on your representatives at a higher level and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I represent this district or this city, or we need some help. It's better than having individual calling because you have already been chosen to represent the people. So I believe that we can do that.
Yes, but that's unfortunately, with the state government as we have, it's a wing and a prayer that is going to get changed right now. But to go back to the density and the congestion, because I'd rather stay on that just for a moment. A project comes along, the city does have the ability, because it's a gold, silver, platinum LEED, they give certain variances to these buildings. Are you in favor of increasing the density if they come up with something that's more economically friendly to the environment? Or do you feel that it shouldn't be increased any longer, leave it at what it was, and try to curtail some of the density?
It has been increased, and I'm in favor of any reasonable redevelopment and development. Because you can't stop progress, but you have to be reasonable with the surrounding areas. You have to go through the proper channel, and if it's within the guidelines of what the city have approved, I will only oppose to those who makes no sense to me and to the people that have elected me. So yeah, I gave you the answer.
Are there any projects that are at the city now? Because you go to the meetings, of course.
Yeah.
Is there anything coming up? I know Tao, which was on Williams Island Boulevard, was stopped.
I believe it's stable because they changed a few times from what was approved originally.
4 times.
And the last time the changes were, to me, a little bit, I would say, creative. I think that the commission did not approve it. I believe they postponed it. They went back to whatever the drawing board. I don't know if it's still live. I don't know.
Here's a perfect example.
But again, it's a very congested street, and it needs to make sense.
And to go to that project, here's an example where the zoning on the project was approximately 100 units. The 4th time they came back to the city, the first 3 I was there, the 4th time they came back, they wanted 300 something units, small units. Then they couldn't get the money, but at least the commission voted it down. And that's where the commission does have the ability to control, because going from 100 to 300 on a street that you can't get down now.
But it's not only that. They voted down an extended stay hotel. They voted down a radical change in what was originally approved. They voted down something that would bring traffic no matter how you paint it.
Hey, you throw about Tao?
Yeah. Yeah. They voted down an extended stay hotel, which allows people to rent for 6 months, or God knows how much. And they voted down after they do due diligence with that, and it was not feasible. I believe that it was something that was a little bit too extreme. Again, 100 units that are maybe 2,000 square feet versus 300 units that are 600 square feet each. It's the use what I believe they voted down. It's not the square footage. It's not.
No, it was the density.
It was the density and the use. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
See, we're in a very unique situation. When I would build, because I used to do this, we had to deal with a county level of services on traffic. And of course, once it hit F, you couldn't build. Dade County doesn't have that. So probably we're at triple F, and yet they still will allow construction, and they still will allow it to, and that's one of the biggest problems Aventura faces, that the county has the density approval, not the city.
True, and only and there's ways in and ways out to the city, and there's an evacuation route that we all have to be looking and be aware that if there's a huge storm and we all have to leave, we're going to have a big problem. So, I mean, there was the same issue many years ago. You may remember they were talking about before Privé was building. The concern was how were people going to evacuate, and I was looking into the evacuation routes, and there was a study done at the time, and it was complex then, and it is complex now. It did not change. It's just that we're trying to put more buildings into small spaces, and there are buildings in small spaces. So we have to be diligent. We have to understand what we're talking about. We have to be very sensitive to the people in the areas. I believe that some projects will be approved and some will not. They're plain and simple.
So if you had to sum up the three most important things you feel you're going to bring to the table when you become commissioner, if you get voted in, what would the three be?
I think experience, knowledge, and I believe caring.
Well, you've been a resident for quite a while here, haven't you?
29 years since the inception of the city. I moved here in July 1995.
So have you seen quite a few changes like I have?
I have seen many people. I have seen a lot of changes, and I've seen growth, and I've seen an evolution that is remarkable. I have seen this city grow from, a few buildings into what it is today, and I enjoy every moment of it.
Well, before I let you go, we have to talk about your family a little bit, because I will tell you, I know your daughter's here today. And by the way, we don't want to insult your daughter, but he only talks about the son most of the time, the hockey. You do understand that, I'm sorry. What I really want to hear about is the autistic side of the family, because I couldn't care less about hockey.
Yeah, join me.
Just very briefly, because that's my passion.
She's my young girl. She's an artist, magnificent actress. She's fighting. She's transferring.
Now, he's got a microphone on, so you can talk to him.
She's transferring from.
No. We don't want to hear from you. Okay, you can talk into that.
Oh, okay. So basically, I'm going into my senior year of college. I grew up in Aventura. I grew up in the Point, and now we're living in Aventura Lakes. When I was supposed to go off to college, my grandpa got sick, my mom's dad. And so instead of going to Boston for school as planned, I decided to stay and do Miami-Dade College. And I lived with my parents. And I got the 2 years done in 6 months. And so then I moved to Israel. So a lot of what's going on right now hits close to home, like with the anti-Semitism and all of that. And so in August, I ended up moving to Boston after living in Israel. And
were you living in Israel when all this went on in October?
No, I moved in August, 2 months before. But I had a lot of friends who were at the Nova Festival who fortunately survived, and some who didn't. But yeah, and so in Boston, I ended up working as in the journalism department, and I also was studying acting and journalism and writing. But unfortunately, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. I was removed from my show, my performances, because I was Jewish.
But you want to be an artist, you want to be an actress, you want to perform.
Yeah. And I was removed from it because I was Jewish, so I transferred, and now I'm finishing my senior year at UCF, University of Central Florida.
It's a great school.
So
I have one question for you.
100%. What is it?
Do you think, tell me what you feel your dad's qualities are that would make him a great commissioner? Coming from...
Well, I've said it.
And you can be honest now.
Well, yeah, no, I said it at his campaign party, and I'll say it again, at one of his first ones, which we're having another one soon. So if anyone wants to come, please let us know. You're all invited. But yeah, basically, my dad's a superhero without the cape. He is. If he could do anything to make other people happy, he's going to do it. If he could make everything better, he's going to do it. So,
and the parent,
I can't imagine ever being called anything better than a superhero. That's a truly amazing thing.
Well, it's what he is.
You should be very proud.
I know that we're not scripted here, so.
No, yeah, not scripted. No script.
No, we're not, but you better
I'd
get an
look a little
increase somehow.
more.
But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gustavo, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know. So, no, you asked me, one of my biggest areas of concern is also safety. And I have some ideas to improve that because of what we experience in Emerson and the anti-Semitism that's going all over the place. And this commission has done amazing.
Yes.
There's more to be done. And that's one of the things I care for.
Well, I thank you for being with us. We'll send you a copy of this, but I wish you all the luck in the world. We can't take sides, obviously, but we're friends, and I only wish you the very best.
Our choices are great. I hope you all go out and vote. I think that this city deserves to have your voice being heard.
Well, we have a polling place right on property.
You are?
We have our own polling place here on the island.
And I'll be more than happy to meet with anyone or get any phone calls that anyone may want to have questions with me. I mean, just want to ask. You can always contact me. My cell phone is always open.
Well, I look forward to it. And again, thank you so much, friend. And I do call you a friend. Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And right now we're going to be interviewing with Dr. Martin Karp, who was on the school board for 18 years. He stepped down to do other endeavors, but an empty seat came about in his district, which is our district. And the reason we're doing this today is because our demographics of Williams Island, as you know, have changed drastically. The age of the students and the age of the kids and the families have dropped exponentially, tremendous ways. And it's caused us to start thinking about our school systems, who's going to represent us, who's going to be sitting on that school board commission when we have these issues that come up. Because as you do know, Aventura has 2 schools, and we're looking at a third. The municipal charter schools, the last school board chair, Mr. Cavallo, was against charter schools. However, my understanding is the new school board chair is very much in favor of it. But we felt it critical that you meet the candidates that are running for this seat, because we are affected directly by these individuals because they represent our children. So with that, let me introduce you to Martin Karp, previous school board member.
Thank you very much.
And obviously you have an amazing reputation. So there's not much I have to say about it. But for those that don't know you,
yes,
tell me a little about 16 years on the school board. Look what you've seen change in this county.
Sure, absolutely. A lot of changes. And as you mentioned, just a community like this, which was really very different. You didn't have the schools here. In fact, if you think about just Aventura specifically, there was no Aventura Waterways, which holds about 2,000 students. The ACES school had just begun. We didn't have really the high school wasn't there. And so many other schools hadn't been built. David Lawrence Jr. K-8 is a new school that came on board, new relatively speaking. OGIS, we added 27 classrooms to that particular school, which is very close by. And I can go through a whole host of other schools. Even in Sunny Isles Beach, they did not have a school. And that was built to accommodate about 1,600 plus students. So it's just absolutely incredible, the number of people that have moved into the area in general. And yes, a lot of people do have children. When I first got on the board, I used to hear the phrase that, well, people who live in condos don't have kids. And that was completely not the case.
No
and
more.
In fact, it has changed quite a bit. So when I first started, in terms of representing this area, my focus was more on programs for adults. Because as a board member, you're representing everyone, regardless of whether they have kids or they have kids in the system. They're still paying taxes, and you want to be able to deliver and let them know that Miami-Dade County Public Schools has something to offer everyone. So I had programs that I sponsored, such as Seniors on the Net, to give those who were less computer literate an opportunity to become more comfortable, whether it was things like emailing or things quite more sophisticated, so that they could be a part of the community and be able to benefit. So the whole point was that we are lifelong learners. It's not just a K-12 system. Naturally, we spend a lot of time on the K-12 piece, but we can provide services for everyone. And that's part of what I did when I was on the board.
So comparing when you were there
Sure.
for 16 years and now you're seeing what it's like, obviously the makeup is so totally different. Totally. And then there's always the concern that the governor has made some decisions to replace certain people on the Dayton Broward school boards. Does that inhibit the agenda, let's say for a better word, of the commission in terms of what you want to accomplish versus the direction you're getting from the state?
Right. So I think probably 90% of the time you can focus just directly on what's happening in your local schools, and there isn't that concern in terms of some of the things that might be a state a state initiative or a direction that, let's say, a governor is going in. But in terms of what we do, really, you can look at it this way. We're really tasked with what is coming our way, and then we deal with the cards that we're dealt with. Sometimes there are things that we can impact, and in many cases, there are things that we can't. So what we can always focus on is like the student achievement piece. How do we ensure that our kids are getting the best education possible? When I was on the board, my first year, our graduation rates were 58%. When I finished and I graduated and left the board, we were at 85%. So we moved the needle almost 30% in graduation. So for me, regardless of what was happening, because I was on the school board in different gubernatorial administrations. Some were Republican and more, let's say, favorable towards charters. Some were Democratic and less favorable towards that. But if we stayed in our lane and focused on what we were there for, then we could really get done what we needed to get done. So for example, if we want to reduce the dropout rate, or we want to make sure that every student graduates with a skill, whether it's automotive maintenance or robotics or coding, then we can do that. And there will be times, like you say, that there might be something coming from Tallahassee. But I think that there's a lot of local control. And my whole thing was I had 100 or more policies that I passed when I was on the board. If you look at them, they were all educational, none of them political. And there's a lot that we can cover in terms of improving the basic skills, providing more electives, and whether it's students with dual exceptionality, some may be gifted and also have dyslexia. There's a lot that we can focus on.
All right, so not to interrupt, but I want to talk something that's very important to me, only because I live it and I see it. And it, to me, one of the biggest concerns, I believe, in education today. And that is social media. And the unfortunate, there's a great benefit. I don't take that away. But it also has taken away the communication skills, the socialization skills of the kids. And then, of course, there's cyberbullying, where these poor kids are tortured to death by one little comment becomes viral. Is there any programs or is there anything you can get involved with to do something for these problems? Because it is a critical issue and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. I see these kids graduate college and they don't have a clue how to talk to each other. I say every kid should take an acting class or take a debating class so they learn how to talk. Because unfortunately, you don't see that any longer.
That's interesting. I remember one day vividly, I was at the park and I saw 5 teenagers all together. And they were all on their phones, communicating with people who weren't there. They weren't communicating among themselves. And so you're right. And you see that in all aspects, whether it's at a restaurant or in the grocery store or whatever. And that is a big problem. So I was definitely a part of an effort to be able to put into effect policies that dealt with social media policies and what could and could not be done. In fact, I also had a board item to limit screen time in terms of homework, because a lot of times students are having too much screen time, and there's allowable screen time recommendations, not just from the optometrist, but just in terms of your focus and concentration. I think so many people have focus issues because everything's like quick images, and you're not reading lengthy texts anymore. You rarely see people reading books, and so if you go into the waiting room in a doctor's office, everybody's on their phone instead of in the past where they were reading the magazines that were there or the books. So yes, we had made a big effort to be able to put in safeguards in terms of social media usage for our students and particular things they could do, and actually to go beyond that, there were also protocols put into place for our teachers because you can't communicate with students via social media.
So to that point, one of the problems I've seen that I hear about quite a bit is the schools aren't equipped with, let's call it educated or experienced therapists or people that can deal with some of these issues. And they become serious emotional issues to some of these students, and yet the schools don't have somebody that can identify a problem when a student has one. Is there any way, is there money in the budgets for the school board? Are these things that's something that could be done? Because these schools are desperately in need of somebody that can work with the students.
So towards the end of my time on the school board, we actually brought in a whole department for mental health. And so there are ways that you can pivot based on what's happening in society to make those changes. So I believe you can always find the money to do particular things. You may have to shift priorities a little bit, but if that becomes the major point, then yes, there are ways to be able to do that. Plus there are partnerships. You can seek grants to be able to fund some of this. You can work with other agencies. There are a lot of local agencies and even statewide groups where you don't have to do it yourselves. Like part of the school district that I always explained to people was the school system should not work in isolation. There's a lot of community partners that want to work with the school district. So there might be those that have those skills, that have those capabilities of being able to help in those particular areas. So we were providing the folks that dealt with like mental health specialists. It was an opportunity to partner with outside entities that specialized in those areas. So it wasn't completely the burden of the school district, not only financially, but in terms of human resources. So I think that's the key.
So looking at the commission that's there, the board that's there now,
Sure.
School board, how many are up for re-election this time?
So always what they do is they stagger it. So for example, there are 9 school board members. And just so that we know, this is a district with 380 campuses. It's the 3rd largest school district in the United States, about 45,000 employees. There are 9 board members. So the board members represent different areas in the county. And so what they do is, let's say on a year like this, on a presidential election year, districts 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are up for re-election. And then in 2 years, you'll have 2, 4, 6, and 8.
Gotcha.
So you don't have everybody up at the same time and have a lot of instability.
So you have
Correct.
So if you look at the commissions that there, the school board members, obviously there are different demographics for various communities they represent, no question about it. And each one has an agenda. How often do you find you could all get together and agree on what's important for the general education of the kids, not the demographics of where the kids come from?
Right. And I think it was easier probably many years ago, back pre-1996, when board members were really elected district-wide. So now you're elected by a certain constituency. However, your goal is to represent everybody.
Exactly.
But it becomes tough when you have to represent a certain community who elected you and you have to deliver the goods. So the thing is really, if you work to get along with other people, the general understanding is, look, these are some of the things that I need in my community. These are things you need in your community. We're going to work together so I can get the things I need, you can get the things you need. And if we can have that collegial spirit, then everybody wins.
So what made you want to go back?
That's a great question. So I didn't expect that the person who came in after me would announce only 2.5 years into her first term that she was going to run for another seat. So at that point, I started to rethink it. I said, I still live here. I moved on, and I was happy to move on. I had like you mentioned, I had other challenges, and was very excited by that. But as I continued on, people approached me and said, it would really be great. You understand the schools. You know what it takes to move things forward in a positive way. Have you ever thought of coming back? I said, well, I miss it a lot. It was really a great run, and I do understand the schools. I know what the issues are academically in terms of the facilities and so on. And the current superintendent is somebody I worked with for 4.5 years when he was a region sup, and I know a lot of the staff. So as I thought about it more and more, I figured, I still live in the community. This is my passion. This has been my career. And I figured, I have a little bit more to give, and I understand it, and I really think I can make a positive difference. I have the demeanor where I know I can get along with the people who are on that board, And then with the encouragement of a lot of people, including some of our locals, you know, folks like Enid, Wiseman, and others, they really are behind me.
She's
and
a big fan of yours,
big
Enid.
fan. So I figured, you know what, and I'm a fan of hers. She's someone who, I say this all the time, but she can be a superintendent of any school system in the United States. So to have her support is incredibly meaningful.
I was surprised she didn't run for the seat.
Right. Well, you know,
It's very interesting. I would, if it wasn't for her husband threatening to move, I think she probably would have.
Well, you know, but she can help in so many ways, and it's not always that particular seat. And she has incredible knowledge and just really knows what we need as far as the community is concerned. So for me, I'm just grateful that I can work with people like Enid and many others who will, if I do get to return and the voters bring me back, certainly she'll be a big part of it.
So you have a primary coming up in August. And at that point, what do? They narrow it down to the two highest vote getters? How does that work?
So how it works is that if...
it's 5 now, right?
That is correct, correct. So what happens is that if somebody gets 50% plus 1, then that person wins.
That's it.
That's it. But, you know, with the numbers there, that's a difficult task. If if no one gets to the 50% plus 1, then the top 2 vote getters go to a runoff, and then they're in the November election.
Gotcha. So the runoff would be the November election.
That is correct. And then it would be decided then.
And if somebody gets 50 plus 1, there's no election.
Then it's over.
That's it. It's over at the primary.
Correct.
So do you, and I'm not asking you to criticize your opponents, of course not. Is there anyone running that has your credentials, your experiences?
Well, I feel my credentials are unique because I'm the one person who, look, I started teaching 33 years ago, and I taught for 13 consecutive years, and I continued to teach even when I was on the school board, and I've been teaching recently. I started a new program at a school where I've been at as a dean, and that program was for students with ADHD and dyslexia, and they weren't, and a lot of them were really just had tremendous talents, but a typical traditional classroom environment was not for them. They needed a different setting where they had more one-on-one interactions, and just a different environment would push them forward. Really very capable, exceptional students, but the regular classroom just wasn't the right fit. So I continued to do that. So I think I'm the only one that created a program like that and also taught for so many years. And I'm certainly the only one that served on a school board. And I worked with people of all party affiliations. It didn't matter at all. It was a matter of how do we make the classroom experience the best for kids? And now, for example, I want to bring back more field trips. I remember when I was teaching, those are the things that kids remember.
That anymore. You don't even see it.
Even the PE. You see kids sitting at PE, standing in line. Maybe they doing pen and paper activities. PE needs to be active. So there are a lot of things that I've been involved with that I think I bring to the table. And certainly I'm the one person that on day one can get started immediately and know what the needs are of the district.
Well, I think you have a little experience doing this job. So is there anything else you want to say or tell us about? Because this is your moment.
I appreciate that. I think that really there are a lot of things that we have facing us moving forward. I've seen that something that concerns me, a lot of the things that are happening on the college campuses have been happening locally in our high schools. I believe that there's a way to do that. We certainly I'm a free speech person, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but there's a time and a place, and there's appropriate times to be able to bring things up, and other times where people have their opinions, but it's not a part of the curriculum. And these are things that, again, that I can help with so that our community, our kids are not getting politics in the classroom. Let's get back to the basic skills. Not that it's dry and boring, certainly, but where we're able to have the critical thinking skills and all the things that kids want to have, but without the politics, without all the other noise going on.
How do you get rid of the politics that's already been in place?
Right. So I think through professional development, because, for example, we're a system that has about 20,000 teachers. So where do we get our teachers from? The colleges. So if some of these kids are coming in with some ideas that they're going to, be able to have their own views and share them with the kids and go way off the curriculum. If you have the right professional development in place, again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but you understand that we have a curriculum. And if you do that properly through the professional development, then you could prevent some of these things and some of these problems from happening.
So one last point, because I hear this quite a bit now. And of course, because we have 2 schools in our city and I'm involved, the biggest problem we had with getting teachers is they didn't want to work in the state of Florida because they felt either they were going to get attacked, not physically, but emotionally and verbally by the parents because they had so much to say. One parent could destroy it for a whole group of parents. They were being told what books they can and can't read. They were being told what history they can and can't say. And it got to a point they don't want to deal with the state of Florida anymore.
I'll address that. So, for example, when they talk about book bans,
Yeah.
Discussion, but when I dug deeper into that, not a single book, and that's where I say there's local control, not a single book was removed from the schools when I had the conversation with the superintendent. Not one. There was one out of all the books, and it was simply moved from an elementary to a middle school library. So sometimes the discussion gets out there where you think that certain things are happening, and locally it's a different story. Again, it's the third largest school district in the country, and I think the largest employer in Miami-Dade, and maybe the second largest employer in the state of Florida. You do have a voice, and you can exercise a lot of local control. So what I would say to those who may be reluctant to be here, I would say that, we've been able to, like when I was on the board, we increased over the time teacher salaries. I think beginning teachers were making in the upper 30s, low 40s. And when I left the board, they were in the mid 60s as average teacher salaries. We doubled the health benefits, and we cut actually central office positions in half. So there's a way that you can do things locally to really be able to attract people to work here. And if you're a system that works with parents and works with teachers and the stakeholders, you have all these organizations out there that really want to partner with the school district, then I think that you can make the case on why to come here to this district. I'll give you an example. There's a group called City Year. And City Year is an organization that has a headquarters in Boston. And they're part of, I think, the AmeriCorps operation. And what they do is they seek young people who want to spend 10 months out of a year when they graduate either at high school or college, giving back to the community. So we were able to use these City Year folks to work with our kids to be able to boost them up, help them succeed in high school and lower grades. But that was an example of partnering with outside entity at really no cost to us in the terms of, their partnerships that you have that just benefit. So if there are any costs, they're outweighed by the benefits. And that's an organization that came from out of state, right? And because we convinced them that we're operating here in Miami-Dade in a way that would make everyone want to come here. And I think then when you can pitch that and you could say, look, we're working with this entity and we're working with that one, and we're doing things in a very unique and positive way, then you can entice folks to consider and give Miami-Dade another chance.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for being here. We know each other. We go back a long time. We've had our differences, but
I don't remember any. Maybe what we want to eat for lunch. I think that's about it.
That's about it. But I do thank you, and your experiences speak volumes of what your capabilities are. We wish you only the very best. We can't take sides, obviously, when we do this, but we wanted to give you a chance because you have so much to offer and so much to bring to the table for the kids.
And I'll just look at the camera in closing and say, please, I'm Martin Karp. I was born and raised here. I don't have to do this, but I feel compelled to do it at this point to be able to do the service for the community. So if you'll remember, it's Karp, K-A-R-P. For those of you who eat fish, it's like the fish with a K, I guess. And number 351 on your ballot. And it's an August election, not November. So hopefully you'll come out and vote. Thank you so much.
Martin, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. And welcome back. Well, we've had quite a group to meet, but this is a little change of pace now. We've met with commissioners that are running for the city, Aventura. We met 2 people that are running for the school board, but now we're getting to something that's near and dear to my heart because of my family, being a judge. And Jason Bloch, who's with us today, number one, his mom lives on Williams Island. She's our neighbor. He's been here quite a few times. But we got a call. We know the family. And he's running against somebody named Peabody. I don't know her. We've reached out to her if she would like to come on as well, because we don't take sides. We're not partisan. We keep the politics out of this, but we do feel it's important that everyone out there gets a chance to personally meet and hear for themselves who's running for their districts and who's running. Jason's running for district court.
Circuit court.
Circuit court, I'm sorry. But First, tell us a little about yourself, because one of the things that I read about you really was quite impressive. So, and maybe I'll start only because aside from your legal background, aside from your legal accomplishments, it seems pro bono and doing a lot of charitable work as an attorney has been a very big part of your career and life.
That's correct. Yes.
And I read so much about these organizations you're a part of and the pro bono work you did. I said, how does this guy make a living? It seems everything is free. So tell us about that, but I'd love to hear more about that as well, how you got into that.
Okay, sure. Just briefly a little
Please,
bit about
anything.
me and my background.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, my family's from here. I grew up in South Florida in Hollywood, went to public school. My mom was trained as a public school teacher. My dad ran a small business. Fast forward, I went away to school in California, got my law degree at Georgetown, came back home. My mom does live here and has lived on Williams Island for many, many years. And I should also mention we were roommates for a short while because my home in Coconut Grove got flooded in Hurricane Irma. So I was a resident myself, and it really is paradise here. And I know the incredible things you've done.
Thank you.
Since taking over, and it's appreciated. So my mom says hello and greetings as well. But after graduating law school, came back home. I got a job at the county attorney's office.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated law school in '94. So I've been a lawyer for 30 years already.
Yeah.
And 20 of those years were at the county attorney's office, which is like in-house counsel for Miami-Dade County. Basically,
Who was the DA at that time when you were there, when you started?
So the county attorney was Robert Ginsburg, and the first assistant county attorney was Murray Greenberg, who were really legends in the legal community. Yeah. The county attorney's office is a very unique governmental law office, very highly regarded. A number of Ivy League graduates there. I was very fortunate to be able to work there and got a lot of experience doing trial work, appellate litigation. I was in the trenches, basically representing the people of Miami-Dade County, representing the taxpayers. And then after 20 years, I was approached and encouraged to apply to become a judge. And so I went through this process, which is a very rigorous screening process, probably similar to what a bankruptcy judge might go through, although it's a different process. I was among over 30 applicants, and I was very fortunate to be nominated and appointed. So I became a circuit court judge. I was on the circuit court bench, where I served in the criminal division. And then since leaving the bench, I've been doing pro bono work, which you referenced.
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
Don't know, pro bono, basically it's providing representation for individuals, families, organizations that otherwise can't afford it. So I've been doing that for the last several years. I've been on nonprofit boards. I'm a member of the Board of Legal Services of Greater Miami. On my Temple board, I was Temple board president for 3 years. So
Which temple was that?
Temple Solel in Hollywood.
Yep.
And other nonprofits. I'm on the AJC board and now on the executive board, on the board of a school that serves underserved youth.
Do you still practice?
I do. So I take cases.
I was going to say, when do you have time to practice?
Well, basically that's what I do. More recently, I've been focused on the campaign, but people who need representation, people facing foreclosure or eviction, victims of criminal violence, I've represented them. And hiring a lawyer is very expensive.
Yes.
And that's one of the problems. As great as our judicial system is, it's not always accessible to everybody. And even middle-class people, it can be challenging. So even though I was no longer practicing as a profession, I didn't want my education and my training to go to waste. So I decided to do that, and that's been very rewarding. But recently, I've been approached to return to the court.
Good for you. You know, the reason it meant so much to me is my daughter's a judge, as you know, and one of her biggest issues is pro bono work. And what they did is they put together a group of attorneys, accountants, doctors, et cetera, and they work with these kids coming out of the foster care program. And they mentor them in terms of, you know, these kids don't even know how to write a check. They don't have any knowledge of anything. So they work with these kids pro bono to help them do the legal work for them, teach them how to write a check, teach them what mortgages are. And it really has made a difference because otherwise they come out of a program and they have no clue how to go on with life. 18, they're thrown out in the streets and that's it. So what you do is critical because people need representation and they can't afford it.
Yes, and I've represented people in the dependency system, which is basically where you're talking about children who have been abused or neglected. I was an attorney ad litem for youth. And you're right. If they don't have the proper rearing, the proper education, maybe in some cases even role models, they may not be set up to have a successful, productive.
Yep. So the question I ask you is, and most people have no clue. There are so many different courts. There's the state, the civil, the circuit, the federal, the this, that. Tell me about the circuit court that you're running for. What does that actually handle, and what's the difference between that and, let's say, a state court case? Federal, I understand, would be a federal issue, but tell us about circuit.
Okay, so just brief sketch. The federal system is, when we hear about the U.S. Supreme Court, that's the federal system. District courts, they handle federal issues typically. The state court is really typically more connected to actually the people. If you're in a case or somehow related to litigation and, God forbid you are, most of the time it's not a pleasant thing, but most of those cases that might touch you or someone you know would be a state court case. So we have a county court, which is a lower jurisdiction. That's civil cases under $50,000, criminal cases, which are misdemeanors. The circuit court, which is where I was and where I'm running to be again, that's higher level, but still trial court jurisdiction. So civil disputes over $50,000, or the more serious criminal cases, felonies, the serious murders, rapes.
Mostly jury trial, if not all.
It doesn't have to be. Often it is. That's where you would have a jury trial. There can be a bench trial. Each party has the right to request a jury trial, and in most cases they do. Yeah. But it's not uncommon, and actually it's common for a bench trial as well, where you actually present the case to the judge.
Jury.
Yes, but the parties have to agree on that.
So when you did this before?
Yes.
How many years did you do it for?
So I was on the bench between 2014 and 2017.
How come you stepped down?
Well, it was an election process.
Oh, okay.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was incredibly rewarding. It was intellectually challenging for me as a lawyer who's really into law, but also being able to serve the community, helping parties, in this case I did criminal cases, basically move their cases through, very important criminal cases, making sure that criminal defendants, their constitutional rights were preserved, but at the same time also recognizing that victims under Florida law have rights as well. And we need to have a healthy criminal justice system, if we want to have a healthy society, a healthy community.
So the circuit would be the next level up, 2 levels up in terms of the importance of the case, for a better word.
So the circuit court would be the higher trial level jurisdiction. And then after that, we get into appellate courts.
But they wouldn't go to the appellate court until after you've heard the case.
Correct. It's extremely rare for an appellate court to hear something from original jurisdiction. They hear when people say, hey, the trial court made an error.
And I read that you have had none of your cases sent to the appellate or overturned by the appellate.
Yes. Well, a lot of my cases were appealed, but in every case, the appellate court said, no, Judge Bloch got it right. I don't know that I'd be able to keep that perfect record going, but I definitely try. I'm very conscientious and try to get it right.
Now, what you're doing is not a political, it's not a Democrat or Republican, it's just
nonpartisan, right?
It's nonpartisan, which is great.
Yeah.
Do you feel that politics has become too involved with the judicial system?
So that's a very timely question. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I was approached and agreed to come back. And you and I chatted briefly before. So in my lifetime, we're living in very strange times. So many things have happened, beginning with COVID and what's happening with politics, and we won't get bogged down in all of that. But I've never seen our community, our country more polarized than I have in these last few years. People despondent, people really lacking confidence and faith in institutions. Mm-hmm. And some of these trends have been around forever. Congress hasn't been popular for a while. But now we're seeing the news media, we're seeing universities, other institutions which generally got more respect, starting to lose that confidence from the public. And the one that concerns me the most is our courts. And for a long time, people had respect for the courts. It was one of the last institutions where people didn't see it as some sort of a partisan component of our society, our government. And now I'm starting to see that the perception of that is being eroded. It's coming under attack. And again, not to take any sides, there's plenty to go around, people losing confidence in our courts. And we shouldn't be that way. The courts should be, in a democracy like ours, a place where everybody, regardless of what income level you have or where your station is or what your political party is, where disputes are resolved fairly based on the facts and the law and nothing else. And I think by and large, we're very lucky here, and that still happens. But the perception of it is what concerns me the most, and we need to make sure that we preserve.
Well, I think you said something very important, respect. I think what has happened is the population has lost the respect for the judicial system. They don't believe in it, they don't trust it, and they feel that the rules don't apply anymore. And forgetting politics, because you're right, this is a very polarized country. There's totally different sides to everything, totally different opinions of everything. But unfortunately, everything is viewed differently than it used to be. You know, there was a time people didn't want to go to court. Now they feel, well, if we lose, we'll just appeal it and go on to the next case. But, you know, my daughter said something to me not too long ago, very, very poignant to this whole issue. A country is like a stool, 3 legs. Judicial system is one of those legs. You lose one of those legs, the whole stool collapses. And we're on the verge of losing one of those legs because of the politics that has gone into the judicial system. And I imagine what you're going to be doing is, you know, you always have the pressure, but you have an ability to make a difference.
Yeah. And I think, I guess I would say the concern for me right now is the perception of it. Because I think by and large, our judicial system and our judges, and even in Dade County, our judges, we have many fine judges in a very good courts. But you're right, it's the perception of that. And as Judge Isikoff chatted with you, and I completely agree, if we lose that fundamental stool leg, then our whole democracy is vulnerable. And we've seen that. I mean, you go back to pre-Nazi Germany, or just when it was starting. You know, the Germans had very robust, vibrant, respected courts. But very early on, they became complicit and they enabled the Nazis to take hold. And there's a pretty good argument that had that not happened, maybe things would have turned out differently. Just last week in Russia, this kangaroo court trial of Evan Gershkovich, an American, a Jew, a journalist. We see in Venezuela where the Supreme Court's kept off an opposition candidate. So we don't have that in the United States. That's one of the things that makes us special. But once the public starts losing confidence in the judiciary, I mean, we know that the presidency and Congress, those are by design political offices. The judiciary is not supposed to be. And we need to give the public the confidence that it won't be. And that's one of the reasons why I was approached. When I was a judge, I was very grateful and proud to be known as someone who was respected for their fairness and treating everybody with impartiality.
So, you know, I don't know if you know or you remember, there was a Judge Larry Schwartz and his wife, Karp. They were both I think they were state courts judges.
Karen, yeah.
She was up here and he was down in probate, whatever. But I remember when he was running for re-election, he went to sleep losing, and he thought he lost the case. He was running against, and I don't know who it was a Latin attorney who had about 1.5 years of experience as an attorney. And when he woke up, he won. But he went to sleep thinking he lost. But I'm not criticizing Latin, Anglo, whatever. That has nothing to do with it. But what does have something to do with it is the credentials of who gets on the bench today is so important. And tell me, what makes you feel that you're better than, I should say better, more equipped?
So, and you're right. The reality is, especially in a place like Dade County, the voters don't know that much about the judges or the judicial candidates. And there's a lot to try to keep track of. I think it's almost unfair to the voters, especially this year where we've got how many people running for sheriff and property appraiser and clerk. So it's a lot to ask of a voter who's just got other things to try to make sense of this.
And there's no way they know. They can't judge everybody.
Yeah, it's very hard, which is why forums like this are very important, so people can learn a little more. But to answer your question, I guess a couple of things. One is you can look at my experience. Been a lawyer for 30 years. Was at the county attorney's office for 20 years. I'm a former judge. I have experience doing the job. And when I was on the bench, there's a Miami-Dade judicial poll of Miami-Dade Bar, the lawyers, where I received 50% of the responses said I was exceptionally qualified, another 40% qualified. In this race, I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, by the League of Prosecutors, the AFL-CIO, and by many, many prominent members of the Florida Bar, including Roland Sanchez de Medina, who is the incoming president of the Florida Bar, John Kozak, Bob Josephsberg, and many, many others. And if you look at who's on my campaign committee, I have people who are from every political party, plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers, prosecutors, former prosecutors, criminal defense attorneys, former criminal defense attorneys. So it represents a broad spectrum of lawyers.
So you have a lot of experience in doing this.
Yes.
And you know the community, more importantly.
Yes, yes. And I care about the law. And I care about doing the right thing when I'm on the bench.
Now, is your election coming up in the primary, or do you go straight to November?
So this is on the primary. So this is this August 20th election, which is currently underway. Many people already have their ballots.
Correct.
At home. There's early voting, which is August 5th through the 18th.
Yes, we have it right here on the island.
Yes, so please get out and vote. Tell all your neighbors and friends.
So if you win the primary, then what?
For my race, there's only 2 candidates, so...
Whoever wins the primary wins.
Correct.
Ah, gotcha. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, look, it's great having you here. And for whatever it's worth, my daughter thinks very highly of you.
And
I want to know who I was talking to.
Well,
She's my barometer.
as you know, she's a very, very highly respected judge, and we have mutual friends.
But I want to thank you for being here today, and anything we can do to help you. We don't take sides. We don't know your opponent. We have reached out to see if she'd like to come on. We haven't heard. And chances are it'll be too late by the time she could now because of whatever timing is we have. But I only wish you all the luck in the world. Please say hello to your mom for us. And thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
By the way, is there anything else you want to say before you leave us?
Sure.
Please.
Again, as we talked about, picking judges, qualified, competent judges who represent you and the values of our community and our democracy is important. I have that experience and would like to be able to serve the community again. Again, my name is Jason Bloch, B-L-O-C-H. I'm number 310 on the ballot. Early voting, August 5th through the 18th. Election day is August 20th. Thank you so much. And if you know my mom, Joyce Bloch, who lives on Williams Island, please say hello.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Bob.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll be right back. Well, I think you've had quite a 2 days of people. To me, this has been very exciting. It's a little bit different than something we've ever done before, but I really believe for the good of our island, for the good of the population we have here, understanding who your candidates are is so critical. We don't take sides, as I say. We don't have any political aspirations here, but we do offer the opportunity to all of the various people running to come on, introduce themselves to the island and to Aventura. You heard 2 school board members running. You heard from 2 of the commissioners for the city of Aventura, and you heard from Jason Bloch, an attorney who's running for circuit court. Whoever you vote for, it's important you vote. Your voice does count. Your vote does count. And when you get to meet these people, and when I was talking to them, you realize this is their career, this is their life. And it's amazing how important our vote is to them. So I do appreciate it. As far as the island goes, everything here is doing great. We're a little bit of a construction disaster right now. Please forgive us. We have hot wire going in. We have FP&L going in. We have the construction of the new clubhouse. And literally almost every single building on the island is upgrading, redoing it, decorating. So this will go on for about another 6-8 months, but please bear with us. As far as the new clubhouse goes, as you heard with Jeff the other day, We anticipate opening as scheduled either the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of next. And that's going to be very exciting. And now we start our 5-year capital plan, which will start new projects for the coming years. So I wish you only the very best summer. Stay well, stay healthy. Again, I want to thank the board of directors for their complete support. We have an amazing group of people. Please start to watch the board meetings coming up in the fall, because we will be getting and needing input in terms of usage, capital funding, and capital ideas. So I wish you a great summer, and thank you very much.